recording now.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us on today's webcast all around System Centre Service Manager. My name's David Archbold. I'm one of the Managed Services Sales Specialists here at Risual, working predominantly with the public sector, so mainly local regional government, NHS and education. Joining me on today's call, we have Joe Hodgkinson, who is one of our System Centre consultants. Now, Joe's going to do the main body of today's presentation and focus really on kind of what System Centre Service Manager is and how it works. Before we kick off though, I'd like to do a very quick introduction into Risual for those of you who perhaps haven't dealt with us in the past. So Risual are 100% Microsoft focused. We're a customer-centric organisation, and we provide consulting and managed services to help organisations really get the most out of any Microsoft technologies they're either thinking about implementing, or once they've got them in place, how they kind of consume and optimize the use of that technology. Risual's vision is really to help customers understand the full potential and the value that they can get from Microsoft technologies. We're really committed to driving positive change in organizations through technology being at the heart of that. Now, we believe we're ideally placed to be able to do that, where we feel we're competent, credible and capable. We're a Tier 1 Microsoft partner, and we cover the vast majority of Microsoft workloads. We were UK Country Partner of the Year finalists in 2012 and 2013. We're also on G Cloud, so all of our services can be purchased through there. And we work really closely with Microsoft to ensure that any of our customers really do get the maximum return on their investments in Microsoft technologies. Now, in order to enable us to do this, we've kind of split the business into two equal and separate halves. So we've got our consulting business, which again is then split into two further parts. So we've got business consulting, which really takes a strategic approach, works with you to have a look at perhaps your current state, where you may be able to get additional value from Microsoft technologies. We also have our engagement managers, our project managers and our architects sitting within our business consulting division. And these are the guys who can really drive positive change throughout the organization. When it comes to our technical consulting, we're slightly unique in as much as we cover the vast majority of Microsoft technologies, but you could always be assured that whoever it is that you're dealing with is a specialist in their own particular field. Now, to be able to do this, we split our consultants up into 5 distinct practices, the first of which is business productivity. So the business productivity team cover all things from CRM through to SharePoint. And the guys within this team only ever focus on SharePoint. So for example, you wouldn't get someone doing SharePoint for you one day, and then the next day they'd be looking at Exchange for you. They focus on their individual specific fields. The next practice that we've got is unified comms and messaging. And this is really where our Exchange, our Skype for Business consultants sit, and again, experts in the field helping you understand kind of more details about the technology. We can then go through design and planning processes, we can do build and test, and then we can obviously go on to the kind of managed and support services at the end. The next practice that we've got is systems management, or cloud infrastructure as it's now known, and this really looks at the kind of back-end infrastructure. It will cover things like Active Directory, all the System Centre suite of products sit within here. We've then got our identity access perimeter, so really the kind of security elements of it, and then our app development team, which is one of our newest teams here at Risual and growing really quickly. These are guys who can do some really good stuff around kind of bespoke CRM applications and other applications. One of the things we're working really hard on at the moment is things like room bookings for universities in particular, although it can be used by absolutely any organisation, and it can look at making sure the room's available, making sure you've got catering if you need it, and any equipment that you need in that room. We would really believe that this will be a really powerful tool for organisations. So the next part of our business is kind of our services side, and this is where we want to help organisations monitor and optimise their use of Microsoft technologies. Now, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. First of all, as a fully managed solution. So we can be your IT team. We can do first line right the way through to fourth line support. We can liaise with other third-party application suppliers that you may be able to use, and really Ridge will be your first port of call or your only port of call for any IT issues that you may have. We can also do workload support, so if perhaps you've got a slight skills gap when it comes to SharePoint or Exchange, we're more than happy to look after individual workloads for you. And again, we can do this on a kind of proactive basis, where we'll actively monitor all the service that we support for you on a day-to-day basis. We'll create health checks for you. We'll do application monitoring, we'll do any security updates, and again, we're there at the end of the phone if anything breaks or you've got any concerns about how to do different elements. Support can be used for that. Now, Visual are in their 10th year this year, and we haven't started off as a kind of on-prem or cloud. We've kind of embraced all of the different ways that you can host and use Microsoft technologies, and as such we're able to help you implement them that way, but also support them. So whether you've got all your Microsoft technology on-premise, if you've got it all in the cloud, or if there's a kind of a hybrid approach that you've taken, Visual again will be more than happy to support you in any element of that. Now, as I mentioned earlier on, Visual really believe that IT is at the heart of positive change within organisations. I know particularly in public sector at the moment, there's lots and lots of work being done to try and get more for less. And we really believe that IT can be a massive enabling factor in that. To this end, we kind of go out to market, and we don't necessarily want to talk about technologies all the time, but want to talk about how the technologies can help you transform and change your business. And to do this, we've got 3 distinct propositions that we like to go out to market with. The first looks at how you engage with your citizens or customers on a day-to-day basis. We believe it's all about making sure that your staff have got the right information in the right place at the right time to be able to connect and engage with your customers in a way that you see fit. And to this end, we've got our connected business strategy. The next part, once you know how you want your staff to engage with your customers, it's really about empowering them to be able to do that. So what we want to do is make sure that they've got the right equipment, they've got the right tools to be able to do what they need to. And to ensure this, we've got our end user computing strategy. So our end user computing strategy looks at, as I say, the types of machines that people are using. Do they need to use a laptop or a tablet PC? Do they need to have mobile phone capabilities? And this is all looked at in end user computing. Now, once we know that how we're going to engage with our customers, we know that we've empowered the workforce to be able to do it by giving them the right tools. It's absolutely critical that we've got an infrastructure in place that is able to support this strategy. Now, to this end, we've got our optimized service vision proposition. And this really looks at how you can enhance your infrastructure, make sure that all the processes and systems are in place to be able to follow through on the kind of strategies that we've put in place. Now, this could be moving to the cloud. It could be, again, taking a hybrid approach. It really works with you to find out what will be the best solution for you. Now, what I'd like to do is just hand over to Joe, who will take over it and run you through some more information around the System Center Service Manager product. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So this is going to be just an introduction to Service Manager. Service Manager is a huge product. It's not just to do with service management, but it's also to do with automation, CMDB, and how to pull all that data from other parts of your environment. So this is just going to be a brief overview, and then we can do additional webcasts where we can do some more deep dive into the individual aspects of it. Okay. So I want to talk about what is Service Manager. I think Service Manager is a product of the System Center suite that is often forgotten, and we've completely forgotten or implemented after the rest of the suite, where it needs to be implemented alongside the likes of Operations Manager, Configuration Manager, and Virtual Machine Manager, because it pulls together all of the different products and pulls all the information into one pane of glass. Then we'll call out a few different aspects of Service Manager. So we'll have a look at incident management, we'll have a look at change management, and we'll have a look at service request fulfillment and how we can start to use Orchestrator to automate some of this. Okay. So the first thing we're going to have a look at is where does Service Manager sit? So as I say, it really is the cornerstone of the System Center suite. So it uses connectors into the other products, Virtual Machine Manager, Operations Manager, Configuration Manager, Orchestrator, and all the custom connectors into other products that you may have to pull all the information into one pane of glass. And it becomes your CMDB, so it becomes your central point for your business services, your configuration item data, your user data, along with all your service management information, your incidents, your service requests and things like that. So it really sits underneath the entire product stack and is kind of glued together with the use of Orchestrator, as we'll see in a little bit. Okay, so why use Service Manager over other service management tools that you may already have in the business? Service management tools that you may currently have may be very, very good, but it's unlikely that they're able to integrate as tightly as Service Manager with the rest of the System Center suite. So you've probably got Operations Manager out there for your server infrastructure. You might have Configuration Manager out there for your client management. Service Manager can integrate very, very tightly with these, whereas your current service management tool probably isn't able to. Service Manager is built on the ITIL and the Microsoft Operations Framework, the MOF framework from Microsoft. So it is industry standard tool. It allows you to implement incident change problem requests and service request fulfillment all in one place, so one pane of glass. And it also allows the self-empowerment of your end users. So as I said before, when we integrate this with Orchestrator, you as an IT department can publish out offerings to the business, and the business can consume these offerings automated with your current approval processes and things in place, but you as an IT department never have to touch that request. So we'll have a look at that when we come onto the service request fulfillment. We'll do a demo where we can, as an IT person or as a business person, request a new Active Directory user account, and you as an IT person never actually have to touch that request. It goes through all the approvals and then is just created, and the end user is informed. So what does Service Manager actually look like? So it's made up of management servers. We can either have a single management server, or for high availability, we can actually implement multiple management servers behind a load balancer or something like that. It's made up of a data warehouse server, which is your reporting capabilities. We're going to do a specific webcast on the reporting side of it. It's very, very in-depth and allows you to do both SQL Server reporting, but also SQL analysis, so you can start to plug it into Excel and get 3D cube models. And finally, it's the web portal, so it's how your users actually interact with Service Manager. The web portal is built on Silverlight and SharePoint, SharePoint 2010, and it can be the free foundation version, so there's no additional licensing or anything like that required. And again, you can have multiple web portal servers for high availability. Okay, so I'm just conscious of the amount of time. So what I'd like to do is to get more into the demos rather than just go through some slides. So I want to show how we create an incident offering through to the business, how we can publish that through to the portal, and then how we can get an end user to actually consume that request, so log an incident via the portal, and how that flows through into the Service Manager, and how you can then pick it up as part of your incident process. And also on the flip side, how we can log an incident via the console, so your service desk analyst sitting there on the telephone, how they can log the call and how they can interact with Service Manager. Okay, so if I present my screen. Okay, so let me just log in. Okay, so this is Service Manager for people who haven't seen it before. Just a really quick walk through the console. So as I was saying, Service Manager is the cornerstone. It plugs into the rest of the System Center suite with the use of connectors. So we can create connectors for Active Directory, obviously to pull your user, computer, group information, and also any printers that are published to Active Directory. Configuration Manager connector, which will pull hardware and software information from your clients. So it'll overlay any information pulled in by the Active Directory connector, overlay that with information pulled in through the Configuration Manager connector. Operations Manager Alert connector, so we can plug into the Ops Manager. So if you get an alert raised in Ops Manager, we can automatically create the incident in Service Manager, and we can route that through to the correct teams automatically with the use of templates. So, for example, if you get an Exchange issue, perhaps one of the DAGs has got a problem, then we can automatically get this to route through to the right people who will look after that incident. We can do an Operations Manager CI connector. So this is where we can start to deep dive some of your discovery information in SCOM. So perhaps your SANs, your network switches, any servers, blade enclosures and things like that. We can bring all that information across into Service Manager to populate the CMDB, and we'll see how that can be used later on, especially when we start to look at incident and change request management. Orchestrator, so we can plug into Orchestrator to execute runbooks. So we can create runbooks in Orchestrator, as we're going to do in some of the demos, pull them through into Service Manager, and this is what's going to enable us to do some of the automation. And finally, we've got the Virtual Machine Manager connectors, so we can start to pull information from VMM, such as libraries, ISOs, and things like that you may have published into VMM. One of the other connectors that isn't here is the Exchange connector. So we can actually plug directly into an Exchange mailbox, which will allow us to do things such as create incidents, or if you've already got an incident, if a user replies to an email, we can automatically get that to append to the comments in an incident. And it can also be used for approvals. So, for example, when we do a demo in a little while about creating a user request, we can send out an approval to the line manager, and all they have to do is respond to that email saying it approved or rejected, and it will either approve or reject. So that's how we actually connect into the rest of the environment. What that does is to populate the CMDB. So the Active Directory connector, we pull through the users and computers. And as I say, if we've got the Configuration Manager connector in there, which I haven't in my lab, unfortunately, but we'd actually start to see the hardware and software information actually of these PCs. Okay. Some of the things that we can do is, as we'll have a look at, is service levels. So we can actually start to put your business service levels into here. So your resolution times of incidents, for example, or your response times, if you've got SLAs for that, that can all be brought in and modeled into Service Manager. We can also do notifications. So standard things is, if once an incident is created, we can respond saying, thank you very much, this is your incident record number, or thank you very much, your incident has now been resolved. So we can create all of those different notifications in here, and we'll have a look at when some of those are triggered in a little while. Service Manager is all role-based access, so although the console looks quite busy here, we can cut out a lot of the console for analysts or people who are on the service desk by removing some of their restrictions, some of their rights, so they perhaps wouldn't see the administration or perhaps see the library to keep the console nice and clean for them. Okay, moving down. So library is where we actually start to create the templates that we were going to publish out, and we publish those into the service catalog, which allows them to be visible on the portal. So if we just jump into work items, and I'll show you the incident, and then we can actually create an incident template. So this is where your analysts would sit for the majority of of the day. So we've split up the views here into different support groups. We've got the tier 2, we've got the service desk, we've got network support. So the service desk would sit in this view, and these are all the calls that the service desk have currently got assigned. So what I'd like to do is to go back to the library, and we're going to create an incident template. So we can publish it to the portal and generate an incident. So visual incident record, and there's going to be a template, and this is just going to be, let's just say it's going to be a software issue. Okay. And it's going to be for an incident. Now, underneath Service Manager, it's built on the framework of Operations Manager. So the same concepts exist with management packs as in Operations Manager. The exact same concepts exist with Service Manager. So I haven't got a management pack for incidents yet, so I'm just going to create one. So management pack is where you store your configuration data. So the template that we create now will be stored within this management pack. And all a management pack is an XML file underneath, but it's how Service Manager stores all its config. Okay, that should load the template for us. So a template is just a pre-populated form. So we're just going to pre-populate this with a few attributes ready to publish onto the portal. I'll explain what some of these drop-downs do when we actually look at the incident in a second. Let's just change the source as well to the portal. Okay. Oops. Okay, so what we can do now is go ahead and go to the service catalog, and we'll create a request offering. So request offering is is something we publish to the portal, so it's where your end users can request a service from IT. So if we go down to create request offering, yeah. Now everything that I'm showing you today is all part of System Center 2012 R2. So there's nothing here that's an add-on or anything like that. Everything that we do today is all actually part of the base System Center product. There are many add-ons that you can get for Service Manager, which adds additional functionality, but this is just out of the box. So new, and then we'll select the template that we're wanting to use. That's the one we just created. And this is what the questions we ask our users. So please complete the following. Spell. So we might ask something like a short. I'm sure we'll probably ask more detailed questions than this, but conscious of time. Okay, and we could also ask things like, please enter your computer ID, or please enter any software you're having issues with. We can ask as many questions as we want really in there that's required. Let's just delete that one. Okay, so we don't want to configure, we've got no constraints to put on those. What we do then is actually map the questions that we've just asked to a field on the template that we created before. So we're going to map the short description to the title and the detailed description to description on the template, and you'll see how that's mapped across in a little while. We can publish any knowledge articles to the request. So these are displayed to the user before they actually submit the request. So it's all about user self-empowerment, trying to get the user to help themselves before they actually log a request through to the service desk. We've got no request we can add at the moment. Okay, and then we're just going to publish it. Great. Okay, now if I flip to my portal server, put this on a different server just to get a little easier. So that's finished. Brilliant. Okay, so if we go to my portal server now, running out of battery. Okay, so if we go full screen, it's a little easier to see. Okay, so we go to the view. We should now have our new software issue that we've just created. So the end user, someone sitting in finance, has got an issue with their piece of software. They can navigate to the Service Manager portal, find the request that is suitable for them, view any help articles. We didn't publish any, but if we had, then the help articles would be listed here. If that can't help them, you know, they've still got an issue, then we can actually submit the request. So these are the questions that we asked. So can't open Excel. Getting a pop-up. Hopefully they'll give you a bit more information than that. Okay, and then they can submit the request through to the service desk. At which point, Service Manager would send an email notification to the end user saying, thank you very much, your request has been logged. This is your incident number, which is IR209. We'll be in touch shortly. What's actually happened within Service Manager now? Oops, wrong one. Got too many. So IR209. So what's actually happened in Service Manager is that request has now come through to the service desk. Sorted by. So there we go. Can't open Excel. So me now, as an analyst, would see that this request had come through. We can see that Joe's the affected user, which is me, and I can start work on this incident. Okay, so if we go through some of the fields on here now, we can see that instantly Service Manager has highlighted that this user is a VIP, so perhaps need to contact them back, or if there's any special process you've got in place for VIPs, then at least it's in the analyst space that they know they need to do something. The information that we've provided is here, and these fields we populated before. Now, one thing to probably call out is the classification category here. If you drop this down, these are quite high level. What we generally find is when we talk to customers, they have quite detailed classification categories, and they've perhaps got all of their configuration item data listed in here. So they may have all of their laptop models listed, they may have all their software listed, they may have all their business services listed, and this list is perhaps a few hundred items long. In Service Manager, it's done a little bit differently. The classification category is kept quite high level, and instead we actually use configuration items and business services to classify the incidents. So, for example, here we would add the software of Excel to the incident rather than having it listed above, and we'd also add perhaps the user's computer directly to the incident. This is done because it gives far more in-depth reporting. If you used this classification category up here with all your computers, software, and all your other items listed, at the end of the month, all you're going to know is that you had 50 Excel issues, for example. If you actually start to add the individual classification items, at the end of the month, you'll know you've got 50 Excel issues, but you'll also know that you've got those 50 Excel issues, but 40 of them are on a specific type of laptop. Or at the end of the month, you would know that you've got 50 Excel issues, but 49 of them are with a specific add-on for Excel because you've added this specific piece of classification item here. So it gives your reporting much more depth, and you can start to do some trend analysis on that then. Service Manager will also suggest, to speed up the process of adding these, if you've got any configuration items listed that are yours. So, for example, if you've got the configuration SCCM connector installed, it will bring across all the device affinity information. So it actually lists your laptops, your desktops that are assigned to you here, so it's easier for you to actually add them to the incident. Okay. The other thing I can do as a service analyst is we can see the SLA that has been applied. Okay, so this is because it's already in use, it's being used by another user. So if we just come out of it and go back in, let's open elsewhere. One second. Okay, so we should now have some service level information. So the SLA has been applied. So we've told Service Manager that all P3 prior to 3 incidents have probably 3 hours of SLA, probably quite low just because it's in a demo environment. But as an analyst, you can come in and you can see when this needs to actually be completed for. Okay, now I'm happy that I've spoken to the user. More integration with the rest of the suite is we can actually remote control the computer, the affected computer, directly from the incident. So you haven't got to start breaking out into other products. Straight from here, we can remote control Joe's computer. And we can do that because we've added his computer as a configuration item. Okay, I've fixed the incident, so I can now resolve it. Okay, and that's now resolved. You can see in the view here that the SLA information, so the red is obviously where it's breached, the warning is where it's gone to a warning, so we know that we need to perhaps progress these calls pretty quickly. The ones without are still okay, they're nowhere near breaching at the moment. So that's how we can log an incident and manage an incident via its log via the portal. The other way that we can interact with Service Manager for incident management is via the actual console. So this is where you've traditionally got someone sitting on a service desk and they're ringing up by the telephone. So as a analyst now, I've got someone on the phone, I can create a new incident from a template. So exactly the same process, but we fill in the boxes. So we've got, who have we got on the phone? We've got this person on the phone. Okay, and this person can't print. Okay, and again, we're going to keep this pretty high level, so printing problems, and then what we would do is add the specific printer and the specific computer to the actual incident. I don't think I've got any printers in this environment to add, but we would go down to printers. No, I've got any printers, but we would then add the specific printer to the incident. Again, that's going to give us much more trend analysis. So instead of up here, we're just got printing problems, we can see at the end of the month that we have got printing problems, but with these type of printers. Okay. The other thing that we can do, thinking about automation, is actually start to add activities to an incident. These can be manual activities, so if you've got a specific set of criteria that you have to complete as you move through an incident, you can add these as activities, so we can ensure continuity of how it's resolved. But we can also add runbook automated activities, and as the name suggests, these are automated activities using Orchestrator. So we can actually get the user, thinking back to the portal, the user could request some help on the portal. The request could come through to Service Manager, but then we could use automated activities to actually go and resolve the incident without anyone on the service desk ever actually having to touch the incident. An example we see for customers is perhaps with a specific piece of software, a specific file on the C drive needs to be removed before the software can load. We could write a runbook to actually go and delete that temporary file, resolving the incident for the analyst automatically. So these can be very, very useful when you start to think about automation and removing some of the workload from the analysts on the service desk. Finally, the one thing to mention here is you can actually start to record the work time you've worked on an incident. So it's all about accounting for your time. So perhaps I've worked on this for 1 hour offline. I can start to add the time into here. While the incident is open, it will automatically calculate the time you've been working on it. So you can either come in and add and subtract as necessary. And then from reporting at the end of the month, you can say, okay, well, Bob did 10 calls, but they took him 15 hours. Perhaps I did 3 calls, but it only took me 5 minutes. So I've obviously not worked as hard as Bob. So you can get that kind of information out of Service Manager. Okay, and let's just save that. Okay, I'm just conscious on time, so go through it too much. But down the left-hand side here is where we have all the views. So we've been working in the service desk view, but perhaps this printing problem on Manchester offices, no one can print. So it's been open on the service desk. It's actually breached the SLA. But perhaps I can't resolve this, so I need to actually transfer this now to a different support group. This needs to go through to the Tier 2 support. Hopefully there's more information than that. But then we can put this through to Tier 2 support. Tier 2 support would be sitting in their own view, and they would see this incident pop in into their view. So it's in theirs now. It's been removed from the service desk view, and me now as a Tier 2 support person could come in and say, no problem, I know how to fix that one. I will assign this incident through to me. So assign to me, or as a manager you could assign through to a specific person. There you go, I'll work on that. Now just going back to these views again, you've also got a view for incidents assigned to me. So you could sit in this view and actually view your workload for what you need to be working on at that specific time. So views can be created for any type of criteria. These ones up here are all out of the box. These are specific ones that we've created for the purpose of the demo, but views can be created for any type of criteria that you need to think about. Okay, that's probably incident management at a very, very high level. So we can do more specific webcasts. We go into a bit more detail in the future. Okay, let's just go back to the presentation. Okay, so we looked at how we can work with incidents from a variety of different sources. So from via the console, where people on the telephone traditionally, via a portal, so we can start to automate it more. That gives the benefit of knowledge articles and things that get users to help themselves. And the one we didn't have a look at is we can also receive incidents via the Exchange connector, so users can actually email in the incident. One thing that Service Manager is just a framework for you to actually be able to build your incident management process within it. So it is very, very flexible Service Manager and can be extended or changed within reason. You know, as long as it's kind of fitting in with best practice, Service Manager can be tweaked to your individual processes. So it doesn't dictate the way that you need to be doing things. It allows for very in-depth trend analysis reporting. This is one thing that I generally find is far better about Service Manager than other tools, is that with adding configuration item data and business service data to incidents, we're able to get far more in-depth trend analysis. And we'll have a look at that in a reporting webcast as how we get all that reporting data out. And it integrates with the rest of the System Center suite. So we looked at how we can resolve incidents and how we can actually work on incidents directly from the console without having to break out into other tools. One of the other sources actually that we didn't talk about was is that you're also able to receive the incidents via Operations Manager. So if you get the alert in Ops Manager, it creates the incident in Service Manager. That's something we didn't point out in the console, but the same process would be that you create a template and apply a template to the alert when it came in to reach it through to the correct support group. Okay, moving on to change management then. So change management is another area that focuses very heavily on the CMDB and all the configuration item data that we've pulled in. So we'll have a look at how we can log a change and then how we can actually have your approval process to approve the change and how we can make that more dynamic with the use of Orchestrator. So let's click back into it's just loading now. Okay, so we're finished with incident management. So change management. So the first thing to probably have a look at is the business services that I've been talking about. So business services are any kind of service that you offer out to obviously your business. Now these can either be built up within Service Manager, or the better way to do it is you can build distributed applications within Operations Manager. So what you'll probably do at the moment for some of or all of your services is instead of monitoring at an individual server level, you've perhaps created distributed applications. You can actually start to monitor at a service level. So instead of knowing if a link server is up or down, you know if the link service itself is up or down. Those distributed applications can then be brought across into Service Manager as business services, which you can see here. What that allows you to actually do is to link the individual components, so perhaps the servers, databases, network switches, SAN environment, that actually makes up that service, and link them here. Now this can be very, very useful with change, because if we say that we want to reboot this particular server, Visual DTO1, we can actually get Service Manager to say, well, that's fine if you want to reboot to DTO1, but you're actually going to take down the Link Unified Messaging voicemail service while it happens. So it gives your change managers far more in-depth knowledge about what the individual change is going to, what impact it's going to have on your business. So say these can either be brought in via Operations Manager if you've already created them, or they can be created within Service Manager in here. It's quite flexible. And we can also have services depend on services. So perhaps link depends on Exchange, for example. You can bring all those dependencies in here. So exactly the same. If we reboot Exchange, we can say, okay, we'll reboot Exchange servers, but you're also going to affect link underneath it. So all that can be built up in here as knowledge. And finally, we can start to add service owners and service customers and contacts and people it's going to affect. And you'll see how this can be used in change in a second. So think about change, these are really, really powerful. So if we go ahead now and create a change request. So exactly the same concept. Change requests are built on templates. So we'll use a pre-defined template, and it's going to be a minor change. Okay. So me now as an IT person or a change manager could come in here and start to complete the request. So I'd like to upgrade voicemail and put in the descriptions and the reasons why, who's going to be completing the change. So so you complete the change. This Ivan can complete this change. We could put in the risks and impacts. But the important bit here that I wanted to point out was the config items to change. So we can say, okay, well, we need to upgrade that server and that server. Okay, but it's also going to affect whole business service for link. So we can now add that here. Okay. We can add in the plans, so implementation, risk, test, and backout. But as I said before, same with incident, this is just a framework. So if you've got additional plans or additional information that you need to be able to capture as part of a change, then additional fields can be added to the form to allow you to capture that information. Okay, activities look a little bit different in change than they did in incidents. It's more of a workflow process. So when we submit this change, this is the workflow that it's going to follow. Now we're going to do some automation with this because we're going to have an approval process, but we want this approval process to be dynamic. So we perhaps have the change manager on there and perhaps the head of IT as static people who are going to approve the change. But because we've added link as an affected service, we want to get the service owner's approval that we're going to do this. The service owner in this instance is myself. So we'll see how that's going to work in a second. So at the moment, we go into here, into the review activity. There are no reviewers at the moment, so we'll see how we can dynamically add those people in a second. Okay. So I've completed all my plans and I'm happy for the change to be submitted. So let's submit that change. Okay, and there it is. Now what we'll notice in a second is this will go to in progress and we'll start to actually do some automation with Orchestrator. So we've got the Orchestrator connector that we looked at before, and we've got a runbook that we have synced across. Set approval. Now, while that's doing it, let's just jump into Orchestrator. Okay, so Orchestrator is a totally separate product to Service Manager, but integrates very, very tightly with Service Manager as it does with the rest of the System Center and Microsoft products. Now, a runbook is a series of steps that are followed. Because you'll see this one's just started to run because of that change we just submitted. So what Orchestrator is going to do now is follow these individual steps. And it's actually going to work out which business service we added to the change, who the owner is, and then add them as an approver. So we'll see that how that's worked in a second. I won't go into how all this is configured, just conscious of time, but if anyone's got any questions on this, or if anyone wants to have a bit more of an in-depth look at Orchestrator, then that's definitely something we can talk about and perhaps do a webcast on. But we now go back to change. Still going. But you can see that it's added myself as an hour reviewer automatically because I'm the business service owner of Link, which this change is going to affect. And so we can add multiple people, we can hard code some people and add some people dynamically, but it just shows the integration of Service Manager with Orchestrator and how we can start to actually automate and how make it more dynamic for your business. So now this change requires an approval, so either I could come in here and approve it, or if I haven't got the console, I could also use the web portal. So let's just flip back to web portal server. So perhaps the business service owner doesn't actually work in IT, so hasn't got the console. It doesn't mean they can't approve it, because they could come into here. They will obviously received an email notification saying that you've got something to approve, but we can see here that this change needs to be approved. So I'd like to upgrade to Link VM, and I could approve it. So I'd go in, tick myself approve, and then it would move on to the next stage. So that's change management and how we can use business services and configuration item data, and also your current approval process. So again, just thinking that change, all the Service Manager is just a framework for you to be able to build your processes within. Once we've got the approval, obviously we'd have some manual activities in there for someone to actually go and do the change. And once that's completed, we'd have either the change manager or whoever needs to complete the post-implementation results. So successfully implemented and link was upgraded. Hopefully a little bit more detail than that. Okay, I'm just going to flip back now to presentation. Okay, so again, we had a very quick look at how we can use change management and how we can use integration with Operations Manager with the distributed applications for change management and reporting, and how we can get Service Manager to actually tell you what that change is going to, what impact that change is going to have on your business. So yes, reboot that server, but it's going to take this particular service down, or it's going to affect these particular people. We had to look at how we can start to add dynamic approvals for changes. So instead of just having hard-coded people or having to have change managers go in and add specific people to a change every time, we can get Service Manager and Orchestrator to do that work for you. You know who owns the service, you know who the service affects, so let Service Manager actually automate that step for you. And we had a look at, as I said, how understanding how a change is going to impact your infrastructure. Okay, so finally, so I think we probably run over by quite a bit. I want to have a look at service request fulfillment, which is another really exciting area for automation and taking some of the workload off your IT department and putting it back onto the users and back onto the actual infrastructure, rather than having your service desk people sitting there doing mundane tasks. Okay. So the service desk, the service request fulfillment demo we're going to have a look at is, again, look at how we can integrate with Orchestrator, so a bit more Orchestrator in there. We're going to have a look at, again, how we log a request through the portal, and this time it's going to be for a new user account. So this is probably something that most people want to talk about, in my experience. As soon as we start to talk about automation and service request fulfillment, the first thing that people want to try and automate is their new user account process. Now, the process that I've got in my demo environment is obviously very simple. Your actual new user process is going to be far more complicated than what we're going to demonstrate here today, but just in the interest of time, we've kept it quite slim. But obviously this can be scaled up to incorporate your entire process from end to end. IT ever having to actually touch that request. Okay, so if we flip back to demo. Now, I'm not going to create the templates and things this time because we've looked at how to do that with incidents. So I've got a request already sitting here. So if we just flip to the template that I've got created. So user account. Exactly the same with incidents, exactly the same with change. We've pre-populated some of the fields on here. And as with change, we have a workflow process that we go through. Now, as I said, your new user process will obviously have far more steps than this in, and it's going to be far more complicated. But just in the interest of time, we've kept it quite slim just to showcase the power of the automation. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to approve the request. So me as an IT manager, me as a department manager can go in and actually approve exactly the same as we did with the change request before the account is created. So your current approval processes and things like that don't have to change. We just build them into here. We've also got accountability, so all this is obviously audited, logged, and we can report back on this. So we can find out who approved changes and who approved new accounts and things like that. Once we've actually approved it, then we're going to go, so this step here is an automated step, again using Orchestrator. We'll see how that works. So generally, this will be done via the portal. I think that I'm now someone in finance, and I've got a new starter starting on Monday, or probably this afternoon. I'd come in here and new account management. I'd select the request I wanted. Exactly the same with incident. We can start to put help articles in here, so we could start to give information about how long a new user request is going to take, how to request new IT equipment, things like that. Any kind of help you wanted to publish. So I've read all that, and I can actually now go through and submit the request. So let me. So we've got starting on Monday. Obviously, in this, you'd need to build in into the Orchestrator bit. We'd build in your username creation, password creation, how that password is then sent through to the relevant people within the department, or whether they have to phone up to get the password, or how that's done. How we're going to handle duplicate users. So if we've got a lot of John Smiths, for example, how we handle that. All of that would be modelled in Orchestrator, and we build the process within Orchestrator to handle that. So he's going to be finance admin. It's going to be his number. Working finance. Okay, and who's his manager going to be? So the person here is the manager. So that's just very, very simple, but get the idea. And we can then submit that request through to IT. So exactly the same, it's been submitted, and it's SR227. So if we flip back here, SR227, there's that request we just submitted. Here is the information that we added on the portal. Sorry. Okay. You'll see it's new at the moment. So in a second, Service Manager works on a process of workflows. So it's the next time the workflow runs, it will realise it's got some work to do, and will start to run the activities. So this again here is just saying now that it's in use by another process. And it's in use by another process because Service Manager started to use that incident. So if we just come out of there, so it started to actually do something. You should see this now has gone to in progress. There we go. And we'll see that it's on the first stage. And the first stage is going to be the approval. So if I flip back to the portal, I should have an approval on there ready for me. User approval. Obviously, the description of things we'd put in, who it's for. We'd have an email going to the approver to say, please go to the portal. You've got to approve a new account for what's his name, Kurt, and Joe submitted the request. But for now, okay, so that's now approved. So in a second, again, once the workflow is run, we'll see that Service Manager, again, it's because it's already in use. We just made a change to it. It's a bit like if you've got an Excel document open, only one person can use it at a time. Okay, so we can see the approval has now been done. Comment has been added. So that's auditable, so we can always go back and say, well, why was Kurt's account created? Well, it was created because Joe approved it. Okay. And then in a second, we'll see that Orchestrator will have started to run the run book. Okay, so that one's next activity is now running. So if we flip back to Orchestrator, so this is the, so we can see it's just gone to the running icon. So we can see that this run book is a bit more simple, but what this run book does is to call this run book first. So we go and finds the incident, find the service request, find all the information, and then we actually go and create that user. So we just flip to the Orchestrator console. So these are all the run books that have run in the past. So we can see that create user one, which is literally just run. What you can actually do as a person in IT is to go through and actually see if that run book was successful. So we can see green ticks all the way along, all successes. So now if we flick through to my domain controller, we should be able to do a search. Oops, I want to create a new one. Search. Kurt has been created. So that's all automated. IT have not had to touch that request. Your approval process was built into it, so your current approvals don't have to change. But IT have had that burden taken off them of having to sit down and create mundane service request. Mundane user requests on a Friday afternoon for users that are starting on Monday morning. It is all auditable, as I've said, so there's no danger of accounts being created and who's approved it. All that is traceable and reportable. And this can be done for anything. So new user request is probably the one that everyone wants to talk about when they start to think about automation, service request fulfillment. But if you think perhaps software deployment, so you want Microsoft project to be deployed, you could build a run book for that. You need your mailbox size increasing, you could create a service request and a run book for that. The possibilities really are endless when you start to think about the automation. So we just go back to slides again. Okay, so we looked at service request fulfillment and how it can self-empower the users to be able to put their own requests in, take the burden off IT. We had an approval process in there. We had long-term tracking of approvals and requests, and we did it full end-to-end with complete automation all the way through. Okay, and there's a very, very quick introduction to just some of the parts of Service Manager. We looked at incident management and how we could build your incident process into Service Manager. We looked at change management and how we can start to take some of your business knowledge, your business services, any knowledge you've already got in Operations Manager, for example, and start to bring that through into Service Manager to make it more usable. And how we can start to use service request fulfillment and automation. Take some of that burden off your current service desk analyst. Some of the bits we didn't have a look at were problem management, which is another module of Service Manager, and also release management as well. But we'll perhaps do another more in-depth webcast on these bits at a later date. Okay, finally, some good resources for Service Manager. It's Microsoft Virtual Academy. There are quite a few Virtual Academy tracks on there for Service Manager now, and also there's a track on there for using Service Manager with ITIL, which can be quite nice to tie the two things together. There's Microsoft Virtual Labs, so you can jump in and actually start to lab some of this up without worrying about it breaking your production environment. You can just do it in a sandboxed environment in Microsoft. So just do a search for that. Or I've mentioned Provence a couple of times. So Provence are a partner of Visuals and partner of Microsoft who create add-ons for Service Manager to extend some of the capabilities. We've got a webcast coming up in a couple of weeks. We're going to do with Provence to look at some of those features. But they've got their own virtual labs as well. So that could be quite nice if you want to have a look at some of their features. And also visual. So if you want any more information, or if you've got any questions, then please just send them across. We'll talk about Service Manager or anything else. No problems. Okay, and then just any questions. But with that, I'll probably hand back to Dave, who I think is going to do the closing piece.
Thank you very much, Joe. I'm just going to take control of the screen now. Hopefully everyone found that presentation really, really useful. It certainly sounds like Service Manager is an absolutely fantastic tool for the support teams to be able to use. One of the things I'd like to run through very, very quickly now is just really looking at the support elements that Ritual can offer. So Ritual, as an organisation, as mentioned earlier, can go right through from the very, very start, helping you to identify which technologies you may want to use, through to design and planning, and then implementing them. Now, touched on it very, very briefly previously. We can do both on-site. We can do on-site support. We can do cloud support, and we can also do a kind of hybrid mix of the two. So let me just bring up the slide for you now. It'll be a second. So yeah, as mentioned, we can do on-prem, hosted or cloud. One of the things I think are really, really interesting at the moment, particularly with a big shift towards cloud technologies and Office 365, is our managed 365 offering. So Office 365 is an evergreen product, constantly changing, and one of the things we think is really, really critical is that you get the most out of the new technology, you get the most out of the changes, and to this end we can offer an Office 365 Service Maximizer. This means that once a month, once a quarter, we can come on site, run through all the changes that have taken place recently, how it may affect you, how it may affect your business, and really ensuring that you get the most out of the technologies that you've implemented. We've also got Office 365 Service Manager. So sometimes it's a kind of new approach for IT for lots of organizations, perhaps a little bit unsure as to where the fault lies. To that end, again, we can help with troubleshooting, be it single sign-on, so linking in kind of complementary technologies such as Active Directory Federation services. And again, really making sure if we've implemented all these technologies that as an organisation they're running smoothly, we're monitoring them in the way that we need to, and we're optimising the use. Again, if it's particular technology areas that you're struggling with, so you may be looking to, after today's webcast, hopefully looking to implement System Center, potentially Service Manager, but it's something brand new for your team. We can do workload support around this, and we can either do our standard support, which would be really just on a reactive basis, or ideally premium support that gives you proactive 24/7 monitoring. We'll provide you with daily health checks to say yes, all the servers are okay, see if there's any problems with it that we need to address before any of the business users are affected, and we can also do security patch management for you as well. So really optimizing your use of these Microsoft technologies. There's a support package available for absolutely everybody. As little or as much as you need, Ritual would love to be able to help support. Hopefully you can see on this slide a couple of our customers across the bottom, and we've been working within the managed services space for probably as long as the company's been around, so 10 years. We're just building and building and building this arm of the business, and hopefully if you ever do need any support, Ritual will be the first place that you'd look to come to. I hope that everybody's enjoyed today's webcast. If anybody does require any more information or has got any questions, please feel free to email marketing@ritual.com. If you want to contact myself, my email address is davida@ritual.com. And once again, thank you for taking the time to listen to today's webcast.